What's going on, everybody? Man, it is hot out here in the Sacramento Valley of California. Pretty much all week, it's gonna be between 105 and 115 degrees. So I got my Stay Cool shirt on, hoping that's gonna help me out. Thankfully, at this point, my air conditioner is holding up. So fingers crossed that continues. Been crazy busy lately. I am on summer break. I don't have work right now, but we are staying busy. Again, did that card show last weekend with my dad, was gone all weekend. Got away with my wife for a couple of days at the beginning of the week. And here I am on Wednesday, the day before the 4th of July, which in my community, the 4th of July is a really big deal. We have a parade, we have really great fireworks display. There's a little carnival for kids and stuff. So we are going to be busy out in the Miller home for about a week. Now, I got a couple things I want to talk about before we get into the questions for this week. First, I got a really amazing care package from Carl. Carl lives in Australia. And so he literally sent these items to me from across the world, which is amazing. So I just wanted to show you a few things. First, he sent me this cool card of the GOAT, Roger. Love that. You guys know I love those. You know, being in Australia, cricket is a big one. So he sent me a couple of cricket cards. Once before, he sent me a couple of cricket cards. But these early cricket cards are so cool. I really appreciate those. But we're just getting started on some of the stuff that Carl sent me. He sent me this flag. And if you look, it is signed by none other than the winner of this tournament, Rory McIlroy. That is a Rory McIlroy signed flag from the PGA Championship that Rory won. That is incredible. And then also this Senior Tour Championship hat signed by none other than Tom Watson. My goodness, Carl, your generosity. Carl, your note was very heartfelt. I appreciate your words as well, my friend. Super kind of you. Thank you so much. Now, additionally, because of the busyness that I've got going on, and I'm not trying to feel, no, let me stop. I'm not trying to have anybody feel sorry for me. Busy is a good thing. Busy means you got a lot of exciting stuff going on. But when there's a lot of exciting stuff going on, sometimes it's hard to stay caught up. So I'm a little bit behind on my emails, guys. I'm a little bit behind on responding to some comments in some of your, to some of the videos. So bear with me. I will get caught up, but I'm not ignoring anybody. I just, I'm just doing a few things. I'll get caught up. It's happening. Now, a couple of little questions that popped up this week that I wanted to talk about, but I didn't want to do a full-length response to because there were a lot of great questions this week. The first one, which I'm going to touch on here real quickly, is the question was along the lines of, you know, your channel's called Midlife Cards, right? Midlife Sports Cards, because that's where you are in life. So moving forward, you know, in 25 years, will it be like called Late Life Sports Cards? Which is funny. So I've not really talked about this, but so I'm going to briefly as I can, point out a couple of things. Now, part of the reason that I named my channel Midlife Cards is because I am, you know, midlife, and I'm in that middle part of my life where there's a lot of changes happening, and the focus is going from all about my kids to a little bit where I kind of need to have some of my own things going on. And a lot of us can relate to that. And so I wanted to have a channel name that kind of described where I am in life. Another reason why I chose Midlife Cards is it's kind of easy to remember, and it's kind of easy to spell. There's some people who have great channels and the spelling is hard to spell or hard to remember. And so I wanted something that would be memorable, but also describe me and what sorts of things I'll be talking about on the channel. You know, as far as in 25 years, will I change the name to Late Life? See, I genuinely believe that midlife, late life, early life, it's not about you hit a certain age and now you're late in life. And I realize that this question is kind of tongue-in-cheek. I get that. But I do believe that midlife is a mentality. It's a mindset. It's not like, oh, well, you know, you're after 60, so now you're no longer midlife. You're, you know, something after that. I don't agree with that. Staying young is a choice. Now, our bodies may change and our hair color may change, but that doesn't mean that our mindset needs to change. I am planning on having a midlife mindset long into my life. And God willing, I hope that's a while, but midlife is a mentality that we have people that I know for a fact that watch this channel that are well into their 70s and 80s. And if you're still participating in things, if you're still active in things, if you're still out and about as a participant in life, you're still a midlifer. Midlife Nation is not an age. Midlife Nation is a mindset. So that's the first thing I want to say. Now, I had another question that came up, and I'm going to put part of it on the screen, and maybe I'll even read part of it. It says, is there any reason other than to get more activity on your videos, you don't simply keep a list of the questions you don't use, so you'd have the option of using them in future videos and weeks? This way, you wouldn't have to fear not having enough questions from week to week. Personally, I've asked a question before. It wasn't used the following week. No big deal, obviously. But I'm also not posting it again. Now, first thing I'll say is, I'm sorry that there have been questions that are asked that I haven't used. Why not just keep a list and add to the list and then move through the list? I don't really know. I don't think I have a good answer for that. I think that's a good idea. I'm going to start doing that. I'm always open to suggestions. I'm always open to thoughts and recommendations. And some people go, well, Greg, that's so obvious. Why not have started doing that a long time ago? You know, sometimes I think that, or I wonder, I guess, and this is my only response, rebuttal, or question or thought, is sometimes when you guys ask a question, I'm not sure if it's a question that you really want to hear my thoughts on, or if you're saying, oh, well, Greg's asking us to ask questions, and I'm afraid for him that he's not going to get enough questions. So because he's not going to get enough questions, potentially, I'll ask a question for him so that he's covered. And it's not something that's a pressing topic that you want talked about. So I feel like sometimes it's possible that people ask a question just for my sake. And if you're asking a question for my sake, or for your own sake, then you would potentially ask it again because you're like, no, Greg, seriously. You know, it's sort of like if somebody says, hey, you know, what do you want to do in retirement? And you just kind of, oh, you know, I know, oh man, retirement. And you keep talking, they go, no, really? Like, what do you want to do in retirement? You're like, oh, like they actually want to know. I guess there are times that I feel like if it's something you're genuinely interested about and I don't answer it in a week, you would answer it again. One of the questions this week was asked last week and was asked again this week. And to me, that makes me go, oh yeah, this person really wants to know about it. So it moves to the top of the list, and I definitely ask it the following week. That said, I think it's a great suggestion. I'm going to start doing it. I now have a running list, and every time I get a question, it will simply go onto the running list. So I appreciate the suggestion and recommendation. I think it's a great point, and that is now the format that I'll be following. That said, if you have a question for next week, please don't hesitate to ask it. Please, down in the comments, simply type out your question. And with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at our first question this week. Greg, as I was walking this morning, a thought came to me. When, how, and where did we, the general public, give PSA, SGC, and others the unearned crown of experts in the new field of card grading in our industry? Why did we give them all of this power? How did they prove to us that they were foolproof and unbiased with respect to their so-called expertise? It is about time that they need to be truly challenged and audited by external, non-biased firms to, in effect, prove that they are who they say they are. Just my 2 cents. Now, isn't that a fantastic question? I think a lot of us ask this. Why do people keep sending their cards to PSA? Why do they keep submitting cards and sending them more and more and more money and cracking and resubmitting? If you need to crack and resubmit, why would you keep using them? It's a great question. It is a great question. Now, let me back up first and say, I think as a whole, PSA does a fairly good job at giving you a fairly decent range of the approximate condition of your card. I think that PSA does a good job, a very good job, at authenticating cards. Do they make mistakes? Yes. Will they make mistakes in the future? Of course. But when you're doing that kind of volume, there are going to be some mistakes. As far as their slabs go, some people like the design, some people don't. For me personally, the cards I've had in PSA slabs have held up fine, have not had major issues with them. So I think, I want to first say that I don't think that they're awful. I don't think that SGC is awful. I don't think that Beckett is awful. I think that they all do a decent service. But to your main point, here's the key here. We gave them the power. We, the collector community, gave PSA and SGC the power when we sent them money and they sent our cards back, and then we continued to send them cards. The only power we have is the ultimate power for a business. We can make or break any business that we want simply by whether or not we give them our money. If you went to, let's just say, McDonald's, and it was awful, like awful, and gave you food poisoning, and then you went back the next day, and it was awful, and it gave you food poisoning, and then you went back the next day, and it was awful, and it gave you food poisoning. Whose fault is it that you keep getting food poisoning? Is it McDonald's fault in this instance, or is it your fault? See, if there was a McDonald's in town and everybody kept getting food poisoning, everybody said, you can't go there, you can't go to them because you get food poisoning, you get sick, and everybody stopped going, either the business would go away or they would do something to fix the fact that everyone was getting sick. But if we as a community are not going to demand differently, then why would they change? Why should they change? Every time somebody sends them money, it's a vote of keep doing what you're doing. I'm happy. So for one, what that tells me is the overwhelming majority of people are happy. You know, I see these videos just like the rest of us about PSA reveals or SGC reveals, and sometimes people are happy and some people are unhappy. But I've seen a lot of people do PSA videos, you know, reveal or SGC videos where they were unhappy, and then a month later they do another one. And I'm like, but you were unhappy and you sent your money to them again. You know, it's very similar to the political system. You know, I live in California. There are a lot of people who think California is doing great. And there are a lot of people who think California is doing awful. And some of the policies are not working. And some of the results are not working. And my question to people who think that things aren't great, they don't like the road conditions, they don't like the financial situation, they don't like the homeless situation, they don't like whatever it is. You get to decide who's in charge. So if all of you people, if 70, it's like that's the thing that's crazy about like Congress. You know, they say the approval rating of Congress is like, what, 35% or something. But why do the candidates that are the incumbents continuing to win? Why are people voting in the same people, but then they're overwhelmingly dissatisfied? I think the only people to blame, it's not if PSA is bad, but PSA is thriving. Whose fault is that? I don't think that's PSA's fault. Now, first of all, I don't think PSA is bad. I think PSA has issues. And I think they do a lot well. And I think they do some things that are not that great. But in order to get them to change, the only thing to get them to change is to affect their bottom line. So if you're a person out there who says, I don't like PSA, I'm not happy with how this went, but then you make another submission to PSA, it's your fault. It's your fault. It's not the fault of the person who doesn't like PSA and then went over to SGC. Now, if you're a person who doesn't like PSA and you went over to SGC, then who cares what PSA is doing? Right? If you don't use PSA, if you're an SGC only person because you've had a bad experience and you've moved on, then who cares what's going on over there? Now, people would say, well, it's bad for the community or whatever. Well, if the community is continuing to send them money, the community must not be that unhappy, because I can tell you for sure that if I went to a restaurant 3 times in a row and I got food poisoning 3 times in a row, I would not be continuing to go. So when we talk about, a lot of people like to say PSA is awful. Well, they must not be that awful, because a lot of people are continuing to use them. And the only time that they're ever going to change is if they get to the point where there's no money coming in. So then that brings in the other point. But they bought SGC. Yes, well, yes, technically Collectors, the parent company of PSA, bought SGC. So now what? Greg, you just told us that if we don't like PSA, that we should abandon PSA and we should go to somebody else. I do think that. And I think if your state is corrupt and your state is having a lot of turmoil and issues, you should vote in somebody else to run it. But in this case, Greg, if I stop using PSA and I'm using SGC, and the parent company of Collectors is the owner of both, then aren't I just still sending PSA money? My answer would be no. See, the person running PSA is not Nat Turner. Nat Turner runs Collectors. And Nat Turner has a person who you probably would recognize, and I've had on videos before, not as a guest, but I've shown him running PSA. And PSA has had a bad run lately, right? They've got stress cracks in their slabs that they're calling, they have, what do they call those? They have some name for the stress cracks. They're stress cracks in the slabs. That's not a good thing. So now they've recalled it and gone back to the old slabs. There are a lot of people that are unhappy with what they decided to do about the grader notes, myself included. I think the grader notes could have been done, could be doing better than they're doing. You know, there have been a series of events over the last couple of months with PSA, which, by the way, and I'm getting onto it. I mean, I'm long-winded, but I'm getting real long-winded here. Has anybody thought about, so last couple of years, SGC did on-site grading at the National. And SGC did a very reasonable cost at the 2023 National for on-site grading. And PSA's on-site grading was way more. It was like triple the cost of SGC's. And PSA didn't have nearly as much on-site grading last year. Has anybody noticed that it's interesting that SGC suddenly isn't doing on-site grading this year, but PSA is? That's interesting, isn't it? But again, that's a collector's issue. Back to my point, if you're not satisfied with PSA, but you keep sending them money, you're telling them you're satisfied. If enough people stop sending stuff to PSA, PSA will change. Will collectors change? Yes. They will change the people running PSA. And then PSA will improve. So my advice, and I'm not bashing PSA. In fact, if anything, right now, I've said more good things about PSA than bad things about PSA. Whatever company you use, whether it be, you know, McDonald's for food or PSA or SGC for grading, or a certain automobile company for your cars, or the mechanic that you go to when you need car repairs, whatever companies you use, the way you can force change is by stopping your continued money that you're flowing to them. So we are the ones who assigned them the kings. We are the ones who gave them the power. And we are the ones who can take it away if we stop sending them money. That's at least my take. Since you began your YouTube channel, how has your life changed? And a response says, he has friends now that pretend to listen when Greg yaps away about cards and the hobby. But occasionally they do listen. Just occasionally, though. All right. So first, Ken has asked several questions during the Q&A over the last, year and a half since we've been doing this. And this is another terrific question. And Andrew, who responded to Ken's question, continues to bust my balls as he does from time to time. I'm hoping in good fun, as he is a legendary commenter, not just on my channel, but on many channels and on many live streams. Ken, to answer your question, I feel like what I'll say here will sound sappy and it'll sound cliche. I have friends right now in places that I never thought I would have friends. So in that regard, Andrew is right. I have friends. I'd like to think it means I have more friends, but I have friends. I have some people that I text with every day from cards, from my channel, that I met through my channel. I text with them every day. When things are going good in life, we talk about it. When things are not going great in life, we talk about it. I've been through a lot of things since my channel started. You know, the last year and a half, I don't talk a ton about, I talk a little bit about my family and stuff, but I don't talk a ton about stuff. My father-in-law passed away in the last year and a half since my channel started. I've had surgery, and I'm supposed to have another one since my my channel launched. I've had some health issues since my channel launched. had some good things and bad things with my career, with my work, since my channel has launched. But I have some people that I believe genuinely care about me that are in my life directly as a result of the channel. And so the way that my life has changed the most is I feel like I have more people now that I care about, and I have more people now that care about me. The other thing is, and I said this on my very first video, one of the reasons I really started the channel is to be a distraction. To be a distraction from some of the craziness in this world. You know, if the way that you make things worse in life is by dwelling on the bad things. You know, the more you think about bad things, the worse those bad things get. And so by having, you know, a place to escape those things, that's a healthy place to escape them, the less those negative things are going to negatively affect you. I had some fairly significant health issues several years ago. The political turmoil in our country and the, you know, mental and physical health issues that were happening with COVID, there was so much negativity in so many different areas. It just got to the point where I'm like, I need a place to spend more time to escape that. And you can only look at your cards so much. You can only look at eBay listings or REA auctions so much. So I needed a place that I could expand on my escape from all that other drama. And that's the channel. So I would like to think I'm in a better mental health place because I pay so much less attention to all this other stuff because I spend so much time on this. So when people say, oh, great, you know, my videos that are 25 minutes take me 26 minutes. I hit play and then I talk and then I hit unplay and then or stop, I guess would be unplay, right? And then I upload it and then I post it and it takes me 26 minutes to do a 25-minute video. You know, when I do a 25-minute video, it takes me 2.5 hours. That's just the way I do it. And it's fun for me because it's an escape. So I feel like I have a healthy escape and I feel like I have people that I get to care about and I have people that care about me. Those are by far the biggest changes in my life as a result of launching this channel in October of 2022. Is your decision to transition to purchasing less cards correlated to the softening of the market since COVID? Or have you been influenced by Darren? Is scaling up equal to keeping up with the Joneses? Grass isn't always greener. Assets and commodities? Aren't we talking about trading cards with nostalgia, a story, and history? To the one who posed the last question, keep the 1,000 cards. If you really wanted that dream card, you would have been saving up for it. Don't sell assuming you can buy them back later. Sell because you lost interest or want to take a profit. It's a super interesting comment. There's a lot of ways I could take it. There's a lot of directions that my mind goes when reading this one and rereading it. So first thing I'll say, I really don't think Darren has been a person who has affected my collecting to the point where I'm trying to keep up with him. You know, my best example is golf, right? I'm a decent golfer. My handicap over the last 5 years has fluctuated from as low as about 3 up to about 8 or so. That's kind of where I'm at. And I've played with some people during golf that are way better than me. I've played rounds with people that are way better than me. And I've played rounds with people that are way worse than me. And I can have a lot of fun playing in the same group with someone that shoots 130 and somebody that shoots 68. And I'm not jealous of the person who shoots 68. And I'm not gloating over the person that shoots 130. I am just coexisting with each of them. And I'm happy for the high handicapper when they make a par. And I'm happy for the low handicapper when they make a birdie. It doesn't affect me. So I don't think that I've been affected or influenced that much with trying to keep up with anybody. I don't think. I mean, maybe I have, but I don't think that I have. Here's what I think. I think that over the last couple of years, since I started my channel, what you guys have seen is you've been along the ride to see my evolution in collecting. And one of the things that has happened for me is the cards that are plentiful have been a little bit less of a draw for me. The hunt of a rare card and the hunt of a nice looking card in a lower grade, which is a completely different hunt. You can take a very plentiful card and hunt for a really great example in a low grade. That's a different type of hunt. But one of the things that I have evolved to down this path of enjoying the hobby is some of the things that I am most interested in now are some of the things that are a little bit harder to come by because that chase is interesting. I mean, I have a lot of money tied up in pirate cards, Allen and Ginter pirate cards. I don't know anybody else that collects Allen and Ginter pirate cards. So I don't know if I'm keeping up with the Joneses by buying pirate cards. One of the cards I'm going to be looking for at the National is a Blackbeard N19 Allen and Ginter. If you see one, let me know what booth it's at, because I'm interested. So I don't think that I'm influenced by others. As far as the other part is, you know, I've able to up my budget a little bit from where I started a couple of years ago. I'm more interested in the hunt, which is kind of a rarer thing. I'm okay liquidating some of the cards that I've had for a while that I've gotten maybe a little bit bored from. I've set up at some card shows and I've sold some stuff on eBay. So I've beefed up my account more than I had because I've liquidated a lot of my collection. So now I have a little bit more money to play with, which allows me to reach for some cards that I never thought I'd be able to reach for. So it's not like I never wanted, you know, some of the cards that I've picked up. For example, a T206 Christy Mathewson Dark Cap I have. It's not like I didn't always want that card. It was just never within reach. It was never reasonable. But I'm in a place in my life where some of my bills that used to go toward my kids are suddenly kind of tampered down. I make a little bit more money than I used to. I've sold some of my collection. I've actively sold some cards through different methods. And so now some of the cards that used to be, you know, unimaginable are now realistic. So I don't think that that's a result of trying to keep up with the Joneses. I think it's just a change in where I am in life. And because you guys are along with me and you see me talking a few times a week, you see the evolution happening. And I think other people are having similar evolutions in what they collect, how they collect, where they're spending their resources on their collection. But maybe it's not on public display like I've chosen to do it for me. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of my response when I read the question a couple of times and I think about it. That's kind of where I think that's how I'm responding. I think that I'm giving you at least a decent explanation of where I'm at.
Greg, thanks for this channel. It's excellent. I would spend way more on cards, but get to live vicariously through this channel to satisfy that itch. I want to buy a Wilt Chamberlain rookie, but gee whiz, it's pricey. My monthly card budget is $200. Should I wait potentially a year or a year and a half to save up for one? Living through these videos until then, to not buy anything else? Or should I consider some second-year Wilt cards or autos instead? Curious what you think would be worth more 50 years down the line, the straight rookie card or something else from Mr. Chamberlain. Would be buying to pass down to children, and just curious what you think based on cards for other GOATs. Thank you for your time, sir.
All right. So let me work backwards. Let me first address the second paragraph of the question, and then I'll circle back to the first paragraph of the question. As far as what do I think will be worth more in the future, literally that's the crystal ball question. None of us know. None of us have a time machine. None of us have a crystal ball. None of us will ever know. A lot of things change. 20 years ago, the thought of an autographed baseball card being worth more than an unautographed baseball card was not that. I mean, that was not a thing, literally. And I know people, you hear people. I remember going to card shows, 25 years ago, seeing cards that were autographed by a player going, oh my gosh, I can't believe they ruined the card. Literally, that was the belief. And now it's completely different. Now, why is it completely different? It could be a million things. Part of it is, I think, the influence of the modern hobby and autographed cards being better pack pulls than non-autographed cards. And as a result, that kind of belief system started to find its way, moving into the vintage market as well. So who knows what's going to happen? So for me to say an autograph is going to be better than a card, or an autographed card is going to be better than a card, or vice versa, is impossible. And I don't want to give bad investment advice for something that I don't feel like I'm qualified at giving. I would say trust your gut, buy the things that you think are awesome, and then hope they go up in value. Personally, I don't buy cards solely because I want them to go up in value. It's nice when they go up in value, but I don't buy cards to go up in value. I know that's probably not the response that you wanted to hear, but that's what I'm comfortable responding with for that part. As far as you've got a $200 budget and you've got a very expensive card in a Wilt Chamberlain rookie card that you'd like to obtain, should you wait a couple of years to buy it, or should you just buy something else instead? I think this is actually very similar to the previous question. Now, the previous question is, Greg, why did you level up? Why are you leveling up? Are you leveling up because you're trying to keep up with other people? And my response is, no, I'm leveling up in my collection because I'm finally able to level up. So one thing to think about is, well, buying other things for now, and then eventually packaging those other things to get the bigger thing. A lot of people say, well, I'm not going to buy a house until I can buy the right house. Greg, you're always using house analogies. I do use a lot of house analogies. And one of the reasons I use a lot of house analogies is because housing is something that every single one of us has to deal with, so we can all relate to. So the best type of analogy is one that doesn't just relate to some people, it relates to all people. And housing is something that we all need. So, you know, if you wait to buy the forever house might get to the point where you can never afford it. And you'll never own a house because you just keep trying to save up, but it's going up more than you can save. So one option is, in the meantime, buy the starter house. Try to do things to add value to it, to gain some value and catch up to what you're striving for. So maybe if you make some smart purchases with some undergraded cards, or maybe you buy some really sharp raw cards that you want, and then if you can get a good deal on them, and then eventually sell them at a big profit because you got a great deal on them, then you're accumulating a lot faster than just, you know, $200 a month, another $200. You could take that $200, buy $240 worth of stuff that you like with the $200 because you got some good deals, and now you have $240 in value versus the $200 that you would have if it was just sitting in the bank. And then next month you do it again, and now after 2 months you have $480 worth of stuff that you like. Again, don't do it just for the value, but do it of things that you like. So now you have $480 worth of stuff that you like instead of just $400. And then you make a trade. You take those things that are worth $480 and you trade them. You do a really good deal where you get something for $600, and now you have something that's worth $600. It's like the whole trade-up challenge. So instead of just sitting there not being able to participate in the hobby, it's using the hobby to pay for what you want in the hobby. And so some of the cards that I wanted for years and years and years, just like I just said in the last question, that I never could have afforded, the only reason I was able to afford them now is because I took some of the other things that I picked up along the way and I packaged them together, and then I used that money to buy the thing that seemed unattainable. So I think these two questions have a lot in common. And is it a bad idea to just wait and just $200? Now I have $400. Now I have $600. Now I have $800. And then eventually you have enough. I don't think that's bad, but it's probably less fun. It's definitely riskier, because what if you buy something that you like and then that goes down in value? Oh, you know, like things have gotten soft in value, and so maybe the things that you start buying start going down. It can work against you. It's definitely riskier, but it's probably more enjoyable than just sitting on the sidelines and watching. So if it was me, I would participate in the hobby. I would buy things that you like along the way. I would try really hard to get good deals so you can get some additional value for your money. And then also make sure they're things that you like so you enjoy them. Don't do it just for the profit again, but things that other people are going to want too, so that someday if you decide you want to move these for this other thing, you can package them together. That's just a thought. That's one of the things I've done, in addition to trying to keep up with Darren.
Hey, Greg. Happy Friday. Question for you. Do you have any suggestions or advice for someone who has a friend spending too much of their income on cards? I understand if you wouldn't say anything by default, as it's not really your business. But isn't there a point where you should because they're close to you? This person has openly admitted that every bit of extra income goes to them, and I'm noticing this spending habit impact other things in their life. Home condition, car, etc. Like, at what point would you say something, and what would you say? There's a saying that too much of anything is bad. I don't want to come off as judgy. It's truly coming from a place of love. I feel like an intervention is way too dramatic, but have no clue how to approach it. Thanks for considering my question.
This is one of the hardest questions that you can ask. There are so many variables at work here. There are so many different variables. It's impossible for you to know the exact situation unless you're in it. So I can just give you a quick summary of how I work with people that matter to me. The first thing I would say is whenever you're approaching somebody about a delicate thing like how they spend their money, it's really important that you approach them with love. You approach them with a kind heart and a soft heart. And you also have to read the person that you're approaching. If you go in and you go, dude, you're being an idiot with your money, that's probably going to put the person on the defensive. But if you say, hey, man, you know, I've known you for 30 years. You know I love you like a brother. You're my pal. We talk about all sorts of stuff. Can we talk about something for a second? Because I love you and I just want what's best for you. But there's something going on right now that's kind of, I'm a little bit concerned. Are you cool if we talk about something like heart to heart for a moment? Like the approach, because, you know, whenever you're communicating with somebody, a lot of it is not what you say, it's how you say it. It is more important how you say it than what you're actually saying. The other thing is picking the right time to approach it. You know, for example, if my wife is not happy with me, which I'm sure I probably screwed up, and she's probably justified in not being happy with me, waiting till everybody kind of cools down is probably a good move, right? That the setting, the timing is 100% part of making sure that the conversation goes well and the words are heard. How something is presented, though, you know, if you got a hamburger and they bring it out to the table and it's covered in flies, you're probably not that thrilled to eat that hamburger. But if the hamburger comes out and it just looks awesome, there's a little bit of steam coming off of it still, you know, and you could just see the juices kind of moving around. I mean, it's like the presentation is key. So the number one thing for me, I would say, is how you say it. Be diplomatic and approach them with love. The other thing is your relationship with the person. Sometimes you may not be the best person to bring up this subject. It's possible that there's another friend or a family member that you can reach out to and say, hey, you're really tight with this person. I've noticed this. Have you noticed this? So make sure you're the right person to approach it, and not that there's a better person that could bring up the topic, because that, I think, could really affect the transmission of information here. So make sure it's the right setting, it's the right time, you're the right person, and you're doing it with kindness, and you're presenting it in a way that is in a loving way instead of an attacking way. Generally speaking, also, when it's a super serious topic, I think sometimes having a third person there is a good idea. Not just arriving on your own, but arriving in with another party. Not so they feel ganged up on, but just so that you can start, if it starts to go sideways, there's another influence involved. if you're not really tight with the person, like really tight with the person, starting to approach people about how they spend their money is a really delicate topic. So I think you got to be really, really careful and tiptoe through this one. If this is your best friend of 30 years, then that's one thing. But if this is your pal that you go to card shows with, you know, once a month, and you might talk to him once in between each card show visit, I don't know if you're the person to do it. So that would be my advice. Another thing is you could look for an outside way to communicate to them. There have been some YouTube channels even where the person on the channel, the host of the channel, has talked about how they've gotten carried away with their card spending and how there's been negative things in their life as a result of how they got out of control with how much money was going on cards. Sending maybe a link for them to watch the video and just say, dude, did you see this? This is crazy. I want to make sure I never end up in a situation like this, and share that video with them so they can see it without it coming as the message from you. That's a really tough one, a really, really tough one. But that would be some of the things that I would recommend when considering it. That said, if you've got a question for next week, we can add it to the list of questions that I have. I think I had about 7 or 8 questions this week, so I have, I think, a couple carrying over to next week. If you have a question that you'd like added to be one of the 5 questions for next week, again, down below in the comments, simply type your question, and I look forward to them.